everybody. Pastor Randy here. Great to be back with you today for Making It Simple. Really excited to continue our study that we're calling Picking the Vine. If you're watching today for the very first time, all of these lessons are available right here, either on my Facebook page or my YouTube channel, which all you got to do is just plug my name in, and there it is. You'll find it very easily. And all of the lessons are housed in either place, probably for consistency purposes. The YouTube channel might be a little easier because each one is bracketed, each one is labeled, and it all starts back from love all the way down to patience that we just finished last week. And so today, very excited today to start kindness. Now, some versions, depending on what version of the Bible you read, some use the word gentleness. So don't think that if you're reading, King James or whatever, and you got gentleness there, don't think we're not skipping that. Gentleness, kindness, they're the same thing. And so when we look at that word, we instantly think of an act, right? That person was kind to me. That word was kind to me. The old song, Try a Little Kindness, Glenn Campbell from back, early 70s or whenever that came out. It just says, try a little kindness. Overlook the blindness of narrow-minded people on their narrow-minded street. Again, speaking toward just being good to somebody, being kind to somebody, that gentleness, that kindness. Where do we get that reference from? From Jesus. That's how he treats us. When we think of the gentle or kind, it's something that is approachable. It is something that is embraceable, something that it makes you feel better. And so when we understand, as Jesus would teach, love your neighbor as yourself, in essence, treat others as you want to be treated, the old golden rule. Love God, love one another. We see all of this put together and we understand, yeah, that's a good thing. But how do we get there? You say, Pastor, we live in a cruel world. We live in a hateful world. Yeah. But here's the question. Do we have to represent that? Do we have to take part in that? Romans chapter 12 and verse 21, my life verse. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. So it's not, I'm going to repay you, get back at you. Scripture says, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. What does that mean? Let me take care of it. I'm your dad. I'm your father. I'll take care of it. Because I can show you the better way to do it. Because if we take care of it, oftentimes kindness and gentleness is not the way that it happens, whether that's verbally or physically. And so when we look at how this comes to be, again, as I've said right from the very start of these lessons, it all begins with the beginning. It has to. It has to. Just like as we go back to Genesis chapter 1 in the beginning, John chapter 1 in the beginning, those two things unite to give us the story that we need, to give us the information that we need. And so as we look at Galatians chapter 5, the fruit of the Spirit, as Paul would write, it begins with love. Why is that important? We do not find ways in the pathway to get to joy and peace and patience and kindness without love. Because as Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, without love, it's all just noise. What does that mean? You don't mean it. It's not sincere. We see a lot of that today. We see a lot of character play in life, and it's not always in the movies. It's not always on TV. It's not always a program that is built around characters, be them adults or children or kid, friendly type stuff, whatever. We see this all the time, not played out. Sadly, sometimes even within the church. and people aren't kind to each other, verbally, physically, all these different things. We see so much injustice and wrongdoing and all these things. And so we ask ourselves, how is this possible that we can find kindness? We may not, but we can be. And by that, I'm talking about how we allow this fruit of the Spirit to grow and evolve and move in our life. See, as we begin with love, just as we've talked about, we find then, not only do we have the capacity to love, but even greater, we are loved. And that brings us joy. And when we begin to understand the joy of knowing that I'm loved, that brings me a peace of heart and a peace of mind, because I have peace with God. And I have the peace of God that indwells me, which allows me to have patience to be able to deal with this or that, which allows me to be kind. To not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Jesus would teach to pray for your enemies. He said it's like heaping hot coals upon their head. Now, we can take that and have some fun with that, or we can understand the nature of that comment. We can say, wait a minute, if I don't return what you've done to me in the same manner, but rather I return kindness. He says that boggles their thinking. They don't understand that. In other words, how can I be so hateful and mean and cruel to you and you not return it? Because I've got something in me that you don't have yet, and I'd like for you to have it. I have the indwelling of the Spirit of God within me. I have the ability to have love, joy, peace, patience, kindness. I have that because God has been so good to me. And so we see that, and there's no greater example, of course, than Christ himself, as he stood before, the leaders, as he stood before Pilate and Herod, and ultimately even on the cross before the mockers and the scoffers and whatever. And he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. When we understand having the indwelling of the Spirit of God, I realize that some in denominational practices and some, different cultures and whatever, they take that to a different place. And again, I don't want to be unkind. I'm not speaking ill toward anybody and their manner of worship or how they do things. But here's the problem. Some people equate words with actions, right? And so when someone says, I'm filled with the Spirit and I have this indwelling of the Spirit of God in me, some people look for a visible action, be it speaking in a different manner or running around and screaming or rolling in the floor, whatever. But that's not what Scripture teaches, friends. What Scripture is teaching is that as the Spirit of God indwells us, it enables us to be more Christ-like. Why do I say that? Well, because Jesus said that I leave you not alone, but I leave you with a helper, with a comforter, one that can meet you in your need, one that can allow you and teach you what joy, peace, patience, and kindness really mean, and how you can act in that. We see different places within Scripture. Ephesians chapter 4, 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, different ones telling us don't quench the Spirit, don't grieve the Spirit. What is that making reference to? Don't put hindrances and barriers in the places that God needs to work in your life. If you're finding a struggle with being kind, then I think that's a good place to stop and realize, what has God been to me? How kind has God been to me? When we realize that the kindness of God is expressed toward all who will believe. And how do we say that? How can we be so assured of that? The simplicity and the beauty of John 3:16 is where we have to go to begin with, because That's where it starts. That is our in the beginning right there when one wants to look at the legitimacy of the kindness of God, that he would so love this world, that he would so give to this world his only begotten Son, that whosoever, that anyone that chooses to, anyone that will believe on that begotten Son, should not perish, but have everlasting life. That is an act of kindness that offers a choice for all. I want to ponder on that and delve on that just a little bit more as we pick back up tomorrow right here and Making It Simple, as we're in for a full run this week. Excited to bring you more, because we're going to look at some profound scriptures tomorrow and a little bit deeper meaning on the word itself and what it means and how it applies to our life and how we need to have it be visible. Everybody needs to be able to see that you are kind. How? We'll talk more about that tomorrow. God bless you, friends. Looking forward to being with you this week and getting geared up for many, 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 many great things in the very few days ahead of us. God bless you, friends. I'll see you soon.